Today I want to talk to you about the leaks we've seen for a rumoured DJI Mavic 3. Now, yes, loads of people have made videos like this saying how good it's going to be, how amazing it is, the specs, is going to blow you away. However, that's not quite the video I'm going to make today. What I am going to do is walk you through what the specs are that we have seen leaked, give you my thoughts on them, but then just put some warnings and caution in place not to get swallowed up by the hype. Because whilst it's always good and interesting to see this stuff leaked, and when DJI launch it, what's more often interesting is what isn't said than what is. And for instance, an example of that is with the DJI Mavic 2 Pro. This was the first drone from DJI to be portable and have a 1-inch sensor. In fact, it was the first on the market to be folding and have a 1-inch sensor. However, it does not provide the same image quality as the Phantom 4 Pro, for instance, because it has a limited processor, and it means DJI are having to subsample the data rather than give you that full image data or crop it. So whilst some of the specs on this camera may look fantastic on this new drone, that isn't the full story, and right now we don't know what the full picture is. Anyway, the first thing we're going to do is jump over and have a quick walk through the specs just to put you guys in the picture of what's going on. Now, this week there's been a load of leaks on this possible new Mavic called the Mavic 3, and Jasper Ellens has really been the person pushing this. Now, I don't know Jasper, I've never met him, I've never spoke to him. I get the impression he's a good guy, and he's clearly digging this information up from somewhere. I do have my thoughts on if these are leaks or not, and my personal belief is this is intentional. I'm not saying Jasper is working with DJI, but it is no coincidence that as Autel are looking to release some drones, that DJI suddenly has a load of leaks, but we'll talk about that a bit more at the end. However, he has been pushing out loads of fantastic info, from bits of the manual right through to us in the end having final pictures of the drone itself. Now, this new Mavic 3 is believed, based on the specs that have been leaked and the images we've had, to have a dual camera setup. The main camera, being a wide angle camera, is a 4x3 sensor. Now, that is the same size sensor as you would find on the X5 and the X5S, as well as on something like this, which is the GH5 from Panasonic. It has 20 megapixels and it has a wide angle lens. It's capable of recording up to 5.2K as well, and 20 megapixel stills. There is also then a second camera which is believed to have a 12 megapixel half-inch sensor that is a telephoto lens, giving you a much more zoomed in image. Looking over the rest of the specs, it's believed to have basically all-round object avoidance sensing, new battery setup, as well as the potential to record to an onboard SSD rather than an SD card. And it's believed that there's actually going to be two models of this drone, a standard model with this camera and a Cine model that actually will come with a new version 2 of the smart controller from DJI, as well as having that high bitrate recording to an onboard SSD, but we don't know what that is. Now, if we hop over to Drone XL, who they've been publishing a lot of Jasper's stuff, you can see that there's been various bits of information leaked, including images from the manual, as well as the Cine version manual, and some specifications from the drone itself too. Now, what is really interesting when you look at some of these specs is some really interesting detail that we would not have expected to see. For instance, this spec makes us think this drone has a mechanical shutter on that 4x3 sensor as well, because down here you can see the wide angle camera has a mechanical shutter as well as an electronic shutter. You can see that the 4/3 sensor is effective 20 megapixels, and then the CMOS sensor is effective half-inch of 12 megapixel, just like we found in the past. The field of view on the telephoto is 15 degrees, and the field of view is 84 degrees on the wide angle. Now, this doesn't appear to be a zoom camera. It seems to be a fixed telephoto. Whether though there's digital zoom and this is actually a 48 megapixel sensor quad Bayer, we don't know at this time, but this does seem to be the overall specs. Now, the size and weight of the drone is coming in at 920 grams, but we don't know, is that for the standard model or the Cine or both? And it does appear to be using DJI's OcuSync 3 wireless system, and there is hints of there being a version 2 smart controller to go alongside this new drone. Now, just quickly taking a look at the pictures, you can see that this is very much a Mavic. However, it is clearly an entire new model and things have been improved and changed overall, whereas you can also see this new dual camera setup on the front. Now, whilst the specifications on this frankly look like things we could have only dreamed of a few years ago, as I said at the start, I do want to throw out some caution because there are some things you need to be careful of here. Whilst putting a bigger sensor on the camera is a good thing, it's only going to work well if you're able to take full advantage of that. Just like the Mavic 2 Pro had a bigger sensor, if it's limited just like this drone is, you're not going to get the benefits from that sensor, and they may as well have actually used a 1-inch sensor with better processing than increasing the sensor overall. And my initial concern is this is more a game of one-upmanship with Autel increasing sensor size rather than it fully being a benefit to the customer. Now, as there is apparently 2 models of this, we can hope that the Cine version, which is believed to have an onboard SSD, is going to be able to record at very high bit rates. We don't know if that's going to be something like ProRes or something else, DNG, or is it simply going to be a lot more onboard storage rather than having SD card slots? It could be 200 megabits a second, we don't know. If that is the case though, it will hopefully mean that the system isn't limited and you do get the full advantage of that larger sensor. It's also going to be interesting to see if there are 2 models of this new drone from DJI that look the same, how that actually translates to users, because some people may feel they end up in a bait and switch method, because if you have the fully fledged version, which is the Cine version with no limitations on recording to the SSD, and then you have another model with the same camera but recording to an SD card that is limited, you're going to have people potentially feel that they haven't necessarily understood what they were buying, and when the drone looks the same and there's internal differences, it can lead to confusion. Basically, I hope if DJI have chose to integrate a 4/3 sensor, they have properly put enough onboard processing to allow it to be fully utilized. We do not want to see things like having to crop for 1:1 pixel ratios or pixel binning, line skipping or subsampling like DJI had to do on the Mavic 2 Pro. I think it is a reality that we will see a limitation on the standard model versus the Cine model. Hopefully those limitations are not around things like subsampling or having to crop for the resolution, and it's more bit rates of recording rather than the actual use of the sensor itself. However, that remains to be seen. Overall, it is interesting to see where this ends up, and if there is a mechanical shutter on this drone, it is going to be a game changer for the mapping industry, because there have been people screaming out for a replacement for the Phantom 4 Pro that they can use that does have a mechanical shutter, and this, at this moment in time, looks potentially to be that. Now, there is always a lot that could be said around the sensor size and is it the same as MFT or Micro Four Thirds. The thing to understand is this, that MFT or Micro Four Thirds, like I've got on the GH5 here, is a system. It is a lens and sensor system. Just because DJI are using a 4/3 size sensor doesn't make it MFT. Yes, that is bigger than 1 inch if you look at the sizing, but we don't have the full details on sensor size yet, and there is always the potential here for there to be some movement around the side, because sensor sizing isn't always fixed and can be open to interpretation at times. For me, this does look like an extremely interesting drone, and it could potentially be the one to beat them all. It took Autel to release a 1-inch model that had full capabilities before we saw the benefits of that, and the Mavic 2 has never fully lived up to what this sensor is capable of delivering. It will be fantastic if this new Mavic 3 does do that, and it is able to actually take full advantage of this 4/3 sensor and allow you to record that onto onboard recording without limitations and get the full benefit. This also raises a lot of questions where Inspire 2 users sit, because whilst this isn't an interchangeable lens system drone, with a 4/3 sensor, this is going to cover a lot of people's options, and you're going to be able to do a hell of a lot with a product like this. Now, pricing wise, well, we don't really know where this ends at the moment. We believe the standard model is going to be around $1,600 with a standard Mavic controller. And then there's believed to be this Cine version, which has the onboard SSD recording, high-speed USB connection, as well as the smart controller version 2. And that, in my opinion, is going to be north of $2,500. In the end, I would say to you this drone looks like it's coming, it's around the corner, but don't get dragged into the hype. As always, when DJI release a lot of products, there will be a lot of reviews that have been sent samples, but wait until you get the real detail on the product before jumping in. As I said at the start, look for what DJI haven't said and not what they have, and don't make any assumptions, and wait for people to get their hands on it who've either bought it or people who do give detailed reviews and are not afraid to say the ins and outs on these things when it comes out and what's going on. As for if I'm going to get one, I don't know. The reality is, if it's going to be about $2,500, I don't see how I'm going to be able to make that happen at this moment in time. I would be reluctant to jump into the base model myself. If I was going to do it, I would be interested in getting the Cine one. However, we'll have to wait and see what happens on that one. Finally, I just want to talk a little bit around the timing of the leaks on this, because it is all rather interesting that these leaks appear just as Autel are set to release some new models that directly compete with the DJI Mini as well as the DJI Air 2. In my opinion, that is no coincidence, and whilst Jasper has been pushing this out, I suspect DJI have been leaving this information somewhere for people to find, and I think this is more a marketing exercise than leaks in itself, and personally, I don't think DJI are going to be too disappointed with what you're seeing making the press. Anyways, that's my thoughts. I just wanted to share them with you. Please do let me know what you think about this new drone. Please give me your thoughts and comments on this video as well, and tell me if you think I could be wrong. Tell me if you think I'm right. If you'd like to support the channel, there are links to buy me a coffee as well as Patreon. If you'd like to support us to maybe even try and get ourselves one of these, I would love to be able to buy one, but I'm just not sure if that's going to happen. Anyway, that's it. Please stay safe, and I will speak to you soon.